Ah yes, the Roller Coaster Top 25, a nerdy tradition from a lot of roller coaster YouTubers that gives people their opinions that nobody actually cares about. Today I will be counting down my top 25 roller coasters and getting some insight on why I like them as much as I do. And before we get started with the actual top 25, I want to preface this is out of my 71 credits that I currently have. With that being said, let's get right into my hottest take.
Number 25, Mako.
Mako is a mid-roller coaster, and I don't know why all you simping coaster enthusiasts like it so much. The 5-second airtime hill is literally like 2 seconds of floater and nothing else. And also, the rest of the ride is just a blend of mid-elements with the occasional halfway decent element like the speed hill. I don't know. The speed hill was like the best part of this ride other than the drop, and I don't know why people like it so much. So that's why I have Mako towards the bottom of my list. Actually, at the literal bottom of my list, why does anybody like this roller coaster so much as they do?
Number 24, Zippin' Pippin.
With that being said, let's get into my next roller coaster, which is probably going to be a little bit less controversial. Zippin' Pippin at Bay Beach is one of my favorite wooden coasters, mostly because it's just a really consistent flurry of airtime, and even though most of the stuff in the first half is floater, in the second half it really picks up. That ending is still one of my favorite endings on a coaster, with the insane ejector death hill. I'm sure you guys have heard other YouTubers talk about how insane that one airtime moment is, but I feel like it really carries the ride into its position. But the rest of the ride isn't a slouch, so I would definitely recommend going out, as it's definitely worth the $1 it costs to ride.
Number 23, Full Throttle.
I don't really have much to talk about with Full Throttle. I mean, what people say about it is true. It's a short ride, but it does have some decent airtime moments, and it's a pretty interesting ride overall. Nothing crazy special, but pretty good for the park it's at, and I really did enjoy it, as it's my favorite launch coaster in the park. West Coast Racers is trash.
Number 22, Montu.
Oh crap. I forgot about this when I said that Mako was my hottest take. Montu is just not my favorite invert. It's not my favorite ride overall. It was a really good ride. It's just not my favorite. I mean, there's a lot of rides that I have ranked over it, with it being at the number 23 position. But I mean, the inversions were snappy and it was pretty intense. I don't know, maybe I just rode it on a bad day, but it's definitely not my favorite invert.
Number 21, Hulk.
Hulk is just one of the best paced coasters, hands down. I mean, anybody that's ever seen a POV of this, I think, can agree with that. And it also has one of my favorite launches on any coaster in the world. Definitely a great ride, and I would recommend riding to anyone inside the vicinity of the greatest coaster park in the world, Islands of Adventure.
Number 20, American Thunder.
So now we're onto a roller coaster from a park that I think is really underrated in the park itself, and also the roller coaster is also really underrated. I don't know, maybe I just rode American Thunder in the perfect conditions, because it was a warm day at night, and the ejector was just hitting, because I know that this ride has some inconsistent airtime from what I've heard, but this ride was just such good pacing, and it just had so much airtime to go around. Really great ride, and I would definitely recommend riding it, even though it's not the best coaster in the world.
Number 19, Mr. Freeze Reverse Blast.
Mr. Freeze Reverse Blast is my favorite coaster by Premier Rides, and I don't think I'm the only person that's ever said that. I mean, it's really just a solid, intense, blackout layout that really, any of the elements after the spike, and even before the spike, are incredible. But after the spike, you just get so many more intense elements, like especially the pullout from the bottom of the spike is insane inside of how intense it is. Like, I remember graying / blacking out on a lot of these elements, and it was really fun. Definitely would recommend to any fan of an intense coaster.
Number 18, Apocalypse.
Apocalypse at Six Flags Magic Mountain is what I would describe as one of the most fluid coasters I've ever ridden. Every element really just flows from one to the next in a really smooth fashion. And even though none of these elements are the most standout elements ever, they flow together to create a really fun layout, and I just remember having a lot of fun on it. I don't know, for some reason I enjoy this thing way too much, and it's my favorite GCI.
Number 17, Zeus.
Man, this ride used to be so much better for me. I mean, during the 2022 season, it was fresh off an incredible retrack that made it so smooth. I'm not saying it's a bad ride, obviously, as it's topped a lot of really awesome roller coasters, but it definitely had a fall from grace from last year. I mean, last year is one of my favorite roller coasters, just period, so I don't know, not much great to say after my new experiences this year, but I don't know. Maybe something positive came out from it as the next coaster on my list I have as
Number 16 Cyclops.
The flaws in Zeus this year really did highlight how incredible Cyclops is. I mean, every single drop, you're getting some incredible ejector airtime. And the last big drop before going into the brake run is the most prime example of this. I mean, I just remember riding in that back row, and I was actually feeling like I was standing all the way down that drop. It truly is an incredibly underrated, and just in its own right, incredible coaster. Definitely come out to my home state of Wisconsin to ride this, and you'll have a great time.
Number 15 Max Force.
Max Force is a very polarizing ride for me. I mean, on one hand, it has an incredible layout, well, it may be short, of just really intense but fun elements. I mean, it's one of the few coasters that actually makes my heart beat before going on that crazy launch. You remember how I was talking about Hulk being one of my favorite launch coasters? This is my favorite launch on a coaster. Not the full ride, but the favorite launch. I don't know. It's a really great coaster inside the layout, but its operations are some of the most atrocious things ever. I mean, I come to Great America a lot, and for the past year and a half at least, it has been running on one train. And I know they're trying to get parts, I believe, for the other train, and it's just like, come on, please. Like, a simple line for this ride that with true trains would take under an hour to wait for is now taking over 2 hours to wait for. I don't know. I just wish they could fix some of the operational issues with this ride, and that would definitely help this ride in my rankings.
Number 14 Batman, The Ride.
Oh no, here comes the giant streak of Six Flags Great America rides. But next up on my list, we have my favorite invert of all time. I know this is going to be controversial, but Batman the Ride is the best invert, and it is the one at Six Flags Great America. This ride has some of the best breakneck pacing you will ever see, and it is easily the most intense ride at this park. I mean, every single element hits so hard, and the amount of times I've grayed out on this ride during warm days is crazy. The pacing on this ride is insane, and it's one of my favorite rides in Great America, even though it is one of the most underrated rides there. Definitely make the stop inside the Clone Zone to be able to make this ride happen for you.
Number 13 American Eagle.
This next ride on my list is easily the most underrated coaster I have on my entire list. It does come from Six Flags Great America, and it is the red side of American Eagle. Now hold on, I know it's rough, but it has some of the most intense airtime of any ride in the world. I mean, coming out of the Helix, if you're riding in the front car, is some of the strongest airtime you'll ever experience. I mean, it rivals that of Zip and Pippin in my opinion. Also, this ride, even though that Helix moment is like the standout for me, throughout the ride, it has some awesome floater airtime, and that first sequence of airtime hills in the beginning is still one of my favorite moments on any ride. This ride, I mean, I would wait 1 or 2 hours for this thing, even though it's in its 42nd season. A great ride, and it's a great starting point from one of my favorite manufacturers, Intamin.
Number 13 Goliath.
Next up, we have my ride that's just super close to my heart. I mean, I have over 300 clocked in rides on this thing, and throughout all of those, it stayed awesome for me. Goliath at Six Flags Great America is one of my favorite rides. And even though objectively, it's not the best roller coaster ever, it really does just have an awesome layout, full of everything a coaster enthusiast could ask for. Ejector airtime, crazy unique inversions, and just supersized everything. I mean, the drop on this coaster is just incredible, and also, the airtime moment leading into the dive loop is just awesome. Then that dive loop, it's just positive G heaven. And then also, you transition directly from that dive loop into the stall, which is just one of the greatest moments of upside down airtime that you'll probably ever experience. Then you finally just ended off with that little surprising airtime moment going into the brake run. It's really awesome. And I think that one thing that nobody talks about on this ride is that there's even airtime inside of the turnarounds. So all around, just a really well-rounded coaster, and while it won't be shattering anybody's mind, it's a really fun coaster, and it's really close to my heart.
Number 11 Raging Bull.
This number 11 spot is one coaster which I can never settle on a spot on. I mean, some days it's just absolutely incredible and one of my favorite roller coasters, then other day it kind of just falls flat. But most days, it is my favorite coaster at Great America. It is Raging Bull. The amount that I've flip-flopped this in Goliath in the past year alone is crazy. But, I mean, it's just an awesome coaster, and it is my favorite traditional hyper coaster. Yeah, you hear that, Mako? You just got bested by one of the most hated on roller coasters in the roller coaster community. Raging Bull is better than you in every conceivable way. It has more airtime, and it also just has a really well-rounded layout of twisting and positive G's, and I just really love it. The drop off the mid-course and also just the first drop itself are some of the greatest airtime moments in not just Great America, but in all the roller coasters I've ridden. So overall, it's just a great well-rounded ride, and if you're riding it, don't ride it anywhere more forward than the back row. It's trash otherwise.
Number 10 Intimidator 305.
Now we're going on to a ride that if I rode it again, would probably move up like 7 spots on this list. But sadly, I don't live in Virginia, so I can't go and ride it. It is Intimidator 305 at King's Dominion. Holy crap, does this thing... It's just insane. But sadly, I've only gotten one ride on it. Yeah, I wish I could have gotten more while I was there, but it was dealing with breakdowns and it didn't open for most of the day. So I was just happy that I got a ride on it in the first place and was really grateful for that. But that one ride that I had is still one of the most crazy roller coaster experiences I had. I blacked out at the bottom of the drop, and I feel like another ride would really let me take in the rest of the ride and would let me move it up on the list. But with my current experience, this is the highest I can put it. I'm sorry to anybody that's a crazy fan of this ride, but it really does look incredible, and I can't wait to get on it again.
Number 9 X Squared.
At the number 9 position, we have X2 at Six Flags Magic Mountain. Probably the most unique coaster I've ever ridden. But really, it is truly awesome, and I'm just sad I didn't like it as much as I thought I would going in. I mean, yeah, it's a great ride and everything, but it's just, I don't know. I thought it would be number 1 for me overall, over everything else. So, you know, I can't come in with too high of expectations, but it really is truly incredible. I mean, the intensity is just off the chain, so definitely go ride it.
Number 8 Twisted Timbers.
Well, I don't remember very much specifics about my experience on this ride. What I do remember is that it had crazy ejector airtime, and it was just a really long, fulfilling experience that just felt really full and really well-rounded. I mean, the inversions on this ride are good, and the airtime is even better. This ride has some insane airtime, and I just think that was a great ride when I went. I don't think I really need to talk too much about it, as there's a lot of other YouTubers who have gone way more into depth on how incredible this ride is. So yeah, go ride it. I know I sound like a broken record just telling you to go ride all these rides, but they really are truly incredible.
Number 7 Ghost Rider.
Ghost Rider is one of my favorite wooden coasters. I mean, I've got a night ride on this thing, and it was one of my favorite experiences on any coaster overall. Another ride with just great elements that flow from one to another perfectly. There are some down moments, but they get made up with some incredible moments, like the drop off the mid-course, and just the entire second half is like one moment that just keeps going on and on and on with awesome airtime, and ending off with that insane helix at the end with all the laterals it provides, I think is an awesome ending and a really good conclusion to this ride that is Ghost Rider.
Number 6 Twisted Colossus.
Twisted Colossus has fallen quite a few spots since last year's list, with it topping last year's list for me. But it's not that it got any worse. I mean, I haven't ridden it again. It's just that I've gotten some re-rides on some other coasters and ridden some new coasters that I just thought were actually incredible. It's not to take anything away from this ride, but I mean, I do like some other roller coasters better than it. But let's stay positive. This ride has some of my favorite airtime moments, like the speed hill right after the first drop itself, and also the camelback on the blue hill is really awesome. So I think that this ride just has some awesome moments, and as well as some awesome inversions, like the Top Gun stall, and also just the 0G roll on the blue side is awesome. So I think it really is just a great ride. And it gets a lot better if you're racing, which sadly you can't do as much anymore. But really great ride. It's just that some other things are better than it.
Number 5, The Boss.
The Boss, the Boss, the Boss. How many people in the roller coaster community are gonna hate on such an incredible ride? Easily the best ride at Six Flags St. Louis. The Boss is just a massive wooden structure that, oh my gosh, the airtime on this ride is incredible. The speed in this ride is incredible. And even more incredible than both of those ones combined, the intensity. This is probably the most intense wooden coaster I've ever ridden, other than maybe Hades 360. I don't know. I just think it's an awesome ride, and I'm one of the few people that actually like the Gerstlauer trains better than almost everything else. I'll say it. They're just as good as Millennium Flyers, and I like them better than the Gravity Group trains. I don't know. Maybe I'm just weird or something, but the Boss is actually incredible.
Number 4, Hades 360.
Since we're on the topic of insane, intense, and awesome wooden coasters, let's pull from my home state. Hades 360. Easily the most intense and most unique wooden coaster ever ridden. This ride may not be the most headlining roller coaster you've ever seen before, but it really does have a truly incredible layout. The pre-lift is probably the best pre-lift I've ever ridden. Wait, no, scratch that. It is the best pre-lift I've ever ridden. And I know that's not something that you usually rank, but it really is a great introduction to the ride. Just the drop out of this station makes this ride awesome because of the airtime that it provides. Also, this ride has one of the best drops, especially in the back row, as you just get whipped over that drop with no remorse from the front of the train. And then the tunnel is one of the most demented experiences ever. I mean, you just can't see anything when the lights are off, and it's awesome. And then flipping right out inside that corkscrew, I mean, it's a really good inversion. And the return trip inside the tunnel is just as awesome as the first, with that outer banked airtime hill towards the end of the tunnel. Then it's more filler towards the end, but even though it still has just one of my favorite layouts I've ever ridden on any coaster overall, not just wooden. So yeah, come and visit me to ride this incredible ride.
Number 3, Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind.
Never mind, this is definitely my hottest take. Guardians is my number 3 coaster overall. You know what didn't make the list? Hagrid's. This ride is by far better than Hagrid's. It's probably the best solely theme-driven roller coaster in the entire world. I mean, it may not have the best storyline ever, but it has incredibly comfortable trains and is an awesome balance of theming and also really good thrills. Hats off to Disney, as I know we may be losing some faith in them, but they really did pull this out of their back pocket, and I think was an awesome addition to Epcot, who desperately needed it.
Number 2, Iron Gwazi.
All the drama's in the 2 spot this year. And my number 2 is Iron Gwazi at Busch Gardens, Tampa Bay. What an incredible RMC, and my favorite hypercoaster overall. I mean, the intensity of this ride is incredible. There's somehow airtime inside of the death roll, I don't even know how, and everything is just so fast paced. I just remember coming off my first ride and actually loving this thing. I got 5 more rides throughout that entire day, and those were 6 of the greatest rides I've ever gotten on a roller coaster. Busch Gardens really did just throw caution to the wind and give Gwazi to RMC, and I think what they managed to pull out of it was incredible. Combining the 2 layouts into one was one of the best decisions I think that they could have ever made, and I just love this ride. Even the stall, which doesn't get talked about too much when you're talking about this ride, I think is one of my favorite stalls overall. But the ride containing my favorite stall is going to be
Number 1, Velo-C Coaster.
Number 1 is yet another coaster in Florida. The coaster with the best stall overall. The coaster with the best top hat I've ever ridden. And my favorite launch coaster overall is Velocicoaster at Islands of Adventure. What a smash hit ride for Islands. I mean, it's the perfect blend of theming and one of the most thrilling rides ever. I mean, the Mosasaurus roll, and I know I'm gonna sound like every other person ever, but the Mosasaurus roll is the best inversion on any coaster. Also, I got ejector on that stall. That's why it's my favorite inversion overall. And that entire section over the water is just a really fun portion. And even the first half, especially the inversions, is really good. But it does definitely pick up inside that second half. Overall, a great and incredibly re-rideable coaster that I think should be a shoo-in for almost anyone's top 25 at their number 1 spot. We're finally done. You guys finally don't have to listen to my pointless opinions anymore. Well, I guess you guys didn't have to listen to them in the first place. But if you guys did get here, thanks for watching, and if you guys wouldn't mind, click on some of my other videos on my channel. I don't know, I have some pretty decent Planet Coaster content, and also, you guys might want to look at last year's top 25, just to see how this one's was different. If you guys don't, that's also fine. But, definitely try to have a good day, and I'll see you guys inside the next video. If you ever decide to come back, please do, please do.